Chapter 6: Negotiating the Labor Agreement by Otila Garza, Savannah Guerrero, and Jose Varela. Objectives: Instruct and inform the class on collective bargaining. Discuss different approaches on how to negotiate bargain. Factors to take into consideration when negotiating bargaining. What is collective bargaining? Collective bargaining is an activity whereby union and management officials attempt to resolve conflicts of interest by exchanging commitments in a manner intended to sustain and possibly enrich continuing relationships. In essence, collective bargaining is when management and unions try to work a new labor contract by reaching an agreement that will please not one but both management and employees that have a dispute. Importance of collective bargaining. Collective bargaining helps resolve interest disputes about terms and conditions of employees. Attitudes during collective bargaining from management and union representatives are important since these individuals will more than likely deal with each other again in the future for many different issues. Most union representatives are elected, and being able to achieve successful bargaining with management will help them gain re-election, especially when working with a specific set of individuals. How to define successful collective bargaining. Successful collective bargaining can be measured in several ways. The economic cost or value of whatever is gained from the negotiation. Comparing outcomes to industry or past negotiations and how it is better than previously. If negotiation helps build stronger relationships between union leaders and management. Success may have a different definition to union leaders than for management. Negotiation preparation activities. There are a few activities that both union leaders and management need to do to prepare for a successful negotiation. Selection of negotiation team and each one of their responsibilities. This includes selecting the right people to negotiate with the right qualifications and behaviors. Proposal determination and assessment, where both parties find what they are aiming to negotiate and what they wish to achieve. Formulating proposal, creating the official pitch for the negotiation. The bargaining range, when management and union leaders meet to negotiate and try to find an agreement. Collective bargaining behavior, the framework. Over 50 years ago, Walton and McCarthy provided a framework that guides the behavior of collective bargaining, which is still being used today. They believed that collective bargaining has four separate processes and can be used in a majority of labor contract negotiations. Walton and McCarthy's four bargaining processes are: 1. Distributive bargaining. 2. Integrative bargaining. 3. Attitudinal structuring. 4. Intra-organizational bargaining. Collective bargaining behavior framework, part 2. Each bargaining situation is unique and different. Collective bargaining behavior usually falls into one of two strategic approaches: distributive bargaining or integrative bargaining. A distributive bargaining approach tends to view the two parties' interests as being in a conflict, making the negotiation process a win-lose situation. Win-lose means one party wins while the other party is losing something. A integrative bargaining, also known as interest-based bargaining, mutual gains bargaining, or win-win negotiations, is where the negotiation process ends with both sides winning something. Attitudinal structuring focuses on attending to the emotions on the other party to better negotiation with them. Intra-organizational bargaining is concerned with the discussions being held within the union or the management itself. The bargaining power model. Bargaining power plays a crucial role that affects the process and outcome of the negotiations, especially when the parties adopt a distributive bargaining approach. Since negotiation is an activity of its own, it's important to focus on the bargaining power of each bargaining party to the other rather than to assessing the amount of bargaining power possessed by each individual party. Evidences suggest that a party that has greater relative bargaining power on its own will have the ability to obtain settlement on the other party with its preferred terms. A few factors that can affect a union or a business's management bargaining power is economic conditions, unemployment rate, labor supply, sales volume, public image, and government intervention. Financial supplements and government assistance provided to union members can decrease their disagreement costs and their management's power. Ethical and legal consideration in collective bargaining. Through the Labor Management Relations Act, it is required that both union and management organizations negotiate in good faith and in an effort to voluntarily settle bargaining disputes. Good faith bargaining essentially meaning each party must demonstrate a sincere and honest intent to reach a labor agreement. Good faith can represent a state of mind, which many times can be difficult to define specifically. In order for a settlement to be reached, an underlying presumption in collective bargaining will often be made by both parties involved. Violation sources of good faith bargaining. The main four types of violation sources of good faith bargaining are the type of bargaining and subject being spoken about, the type of actions being taken during bargaining, the entire totality of a party's conduct, successor employer bargaining obligations. Type of bargaining subject. Illegal bargaining subjects involve a violation of law, and there is no legal duty to bargain over such an issue. If the parties were to include such an illegal term in their contract, that portion of the party's contract would be unenforceable in court. Examples of illegal terms would include a closed shop union security clause, a whites-only employment clause, mandatory retirement at age of 62, and compensation terms that violate the provisions of the Fair Labor Standards Act. Mandatory bargaining subjects. There is a duty to bargain in good faith over mandatory bargaining subjects, which are subjects that may have a direct effect on bargaining unit members. Wages, hours, or other terms and conditions of employment. Willingness to meet at reasonable times for the purpose of negotiating and the willingness to reduce oral agreement to writing. Management cannot legally change current contract language governing an existing employment term involving a mandatory bargaining subject unless the current contract clearly gives management the right to do so. Specific bargaining actions. Examples of management violations. Refuses to meet with the union to negotiate its proposals. Implements a wage change without consulting the union. Insists to a point of impasse on a provision requiring that a secret ballot election be held before a strike can be called. Refuses to furnish requested information to the union that is relevant and necessary for the union to perform its legal bargaining duty, as in supply costs and other data relating to a group insurance plan administered by the employer.